They told us this would be the greatest World Cup ever staged on Earth. They promised spectacle, history, a tournament so vast and so loud it would redefine what football could become. And then, 22 minutes into one of the most anticipated openers of the entire competition, the whole illusion cracked. Not because of a goal, not because of a red card, because of a whistle. A whistle nobody expected. A whistle that turned a packed stadium in Dallas into a chorus of boos so loud the broadcast microphones could not hide it. And in that single moment, the truth about this World Cup began to leak out. Stay with us, because what happened inside AT&T Stadium that night was not a footnote. It was a warning, a signal, a glimpse into what this expanded, repackaged, monetized tournament has quietly become. England were beating Croatia. The crowd was electric. Harry Kane had already struck. Jude Bellingham was orchestrating midfield like a conductor possessed. And then, suddenly, everything stopped. Players walked off the pitch, coaches grabbed clipboards, and the fans, tens of thousands of them, did something you almost never hear at a World Cup opener. They turned on the tournament itself. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that one stoppage in Dallas became the first true scandal of this World Cup. Why broadcasters in different countries treated it in completely different ways. Why former players are openly questioning FIFA's motives, and why the controversy over a single hydration break has cracked open a much bigger conversation about what football is being turned into. So before we go any deeper, subscribe and turn on notifications, because what follows is the kind of story FIFA would rather you scroll past. Trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming. Here is the central contradiction. FIFA promised the biggest, boldest, most spectacular World Cup ever assembled. 48 teams, 104 matches, revenue projections shattering every previous record, a festival of football stretching across an entire continent. And yet, in the very first week, the loudest noise from the stands was not celebration. It was protest. The promise was spectacle. The reality increasingly feels like control. Spectacle versus control. Tradition versus regulation. Football versus the machine wrapped around it. That is the tension running underneath everything you are about to hear. Let us go back to that match. England versus Croatia. A rematch soaked in history, a rivalry born from the heartbreak of 2018, when Croatia ended England's semi-final dream in Moscow. This was supposed to be the redemption arc, and on the pitch, it delivered. Harry Kane scored twice, ruthless and clinical, the captain reminding the world he is still the heartbeat of this team. Jude Bellingham added a third, gliding through midfield with that unmistakable swagger. And late on, Marcus Rashford sealed it, sliding in to make it 4-2, sending English fans into a roar that shook the upper tiers. 4 goals, 2 from Croatia, drama, redemption, fireworks, everything a World Cup opener should be. And yet, nobody is talking about the goals. Nobody is replaying Bellingham's finish. Nobody is dissecting Kane's movement. Because at minute 22, the referee blew his whistle for something that had nothing to do with football. A mandatory FIFA hydration break. Players trudged to the sidelines, bottles were handed out, coaches barked instructions, and the crowd reacted with a sound that is now echoing across the entire tournament. They booed. Loudly. Long. Sustained. And the cameras caught all of it. Think about that for a moment. A World Cup opener. England versus Croatia. A grudge match 7 years in the making. And the defining sound of the night was not a chant, not a cheer, not a gasp. It was a boo aimed at FIFA itself. Sit with that, because that is not a normal reaction. That is a crowd telling the governing body of world football that something is broken. So why the fury? Why did fans turn on a safety measure that, on paper, sounds entirely reasonable? Here is where the picture grows darker. The retractable roof at AT&T Stadium was closed. The air conditioning was running. The interior of the stadium was climate-controlled, comfortable, sealed off from the Texas sun. There was no heat emergency. There was no humidity crisis. There was no medical reason, visible to anyone in that arena, for play to stop. And still, the whistle came. Still, the players walked off. Still, the rhythm of one of the biggest matches of the year was severed in two. Fans looked around, confused, frustrated, and then furious. Because the official justification, player welfare and extreme heat, simply did not match the reality they were sitting inside. And that mismatch, that gap between the stated reason and the visible truth, is what cracked the dam. Because once fans started asking why, they did not stop. Pull back further and the picture grows even more uncomfortable. Researchers have warned for months about dangerous wet bulb globe temperatures in several United States host cities. The science behind heat stoppages is real. In open stadiums, under blazing sun, in cities where humidity turns the air into a wall, these breaks save lives. Nobody serious disputes that. But the implementation, critics argue, has been inconsistent, almost careless, applied indoors and outdoors with the same blanket rule, as if the conditions inside a sealed, refrigerated arena are identical to the conditions on a sun-baked pitch in the middle of July. And then came the voice that lit the fuse. Ian Wright, former England striker, beloved broadcaster, a man who speaks bluntly because he has earned the right to, looked into the camera and said what millions were already thinking. These breaks, he suggested, are not only about hydration, they are about commercial space. Structured windows, predictable pauses, slots that can be filled, packaged, sold. He described how a flowing 90-minute match, the most beautiful rhythm in world sport, is quietly being carved into segmented quarters. Football, sliced like American sport. Football, reshaped to fit the advertising break. Sit with that. Because once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. And the evidence is everywhere. In the United States, broadcast partners filled those hydration pauses with advertisements. Cars, soft drinks, streaming platforms, betting apps, all squeezed into the gap where the game used to breathe. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the BBC in the United Kingdom showed live stadium footage during the same stoppage. No commercials, just the crowd, the players, the pause. ITV reportedly debated whether to sell advertising in those windows before ultimately deciding against it. Same break, same match, same FIFA rule. Two completely different experiences depending on where you were watching. One audience sees football, another audience sees a commercial. And that contrast tells you everything about what these breaks have quietly become. Before we go deeper, if this is the kind of coverage you have been waiting for, the kind that actually pulls back the curtain instead of repeating press releases, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what is coming next stretches far beyond one stoppage in Dallas, and you will not want to miss it. Because the hydration break, as loud as it was, is only one thread in a much larger pattern. Pull back further, and the picture grows darker still. Consider Egypt. The Pharaohs arrived at this World Cup carrying stars on their shirts, stars representing their record-breaking Africa Cup of Nations titles, a symbol of continental pride stitched into the fabric of their identity. And FIFA ordered them removed. Branding rules, they said. Stars on national team shirts must represent World Cup victories only. A continent's history, scrubbed from a jersey, because the regulation book demanded it. Consider Haiti. A nation with a revolutionary history older than most football federations on earth. Their proposed jersey design depicted a historic battle from their fight for independence, a moment of cultural memory woven into cloth. FIFA banned it. Political imagery, they ruled. Despite the cultural weight, despite the meaning, despite the pride, the shirt was rejected, the story was silenced. And again, the regulation won. None of these incidents, taken alone, would topple a tournament. A jersey here, a star there, a whistle at minute 22, small things. But stack them together, layer them on top of each other, and a pattern emerges. A pattern that fans are starting to recognize. Decisions made in the name of branding. Decisions made in the name of structure. Decisions made in the name of commerce. And tradition, identity, culture, rhythm, quietly pushed to the edges of the frame. And yet, here is the strange, beautiful contradiction at the heart of it all. The football itself has been magnificent. The opening week has delivered drama, late goals, stunning upsets, individual brilliance. 48 teams have brought stories from every corner of the planet. The matches, on their own terms, have justified the hype. The product on the pitch is not the problem. The product on the pitch is glorious. The problem is everything wrapped around it. The problem is the machine. The problem is the sense, growing louder with every passing match, that the soul of the tournament is being negotiated away in rooms the fans will never see. So what does Dallas really tell us? It tells us that supporters are paying attention. It tells us that a crowd will tolerate many things, but it will not tolerate being treated as an afterthought. It tells us that when the stated reason for a decision does not match the reality in front of fans, trust evaporates instantly. And it tells us that this World Cup, for all its scale, for all its ambition, for all its record-breaking promises, is now walking a tightrope between celebration and resentment, between spectacle and suspicion, between the game we love and the product it is being turned into. FIFA promised the greatest World Cup ever, and on the pitch, in flashes, they are delivering it. But off the pitch, in the boos echoing through a sealed stadium in Dallas, in the stars stripped from Egyptian shirts, in the Haitian jersey banished from view, in the advertisements stuffed into every pause, a different story is being written. A story about control, a story about commerce, a story about who this tournament is really for. So what do you think? Was that boo in Dallas an overreaction, or the first honest reaction of the entire tournament? Drop your verdict in the comments, hit that like button if this opened your eyes, and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next, because this is only the beginning. FIFA promised the greatest World Cup ever. The world is still waiting to see whether they meant the greatest for football or the greatest for themselves.